I have seen one of the wildest and craziest takes on X that I've ever seen. Someone actually thinks the Big 12 should consider kicking West Virginia out of the conference. And I'm going to explain why and why that's wild and crazy and flat out dumb right after this word from our sponsor. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up? Welcome in to another edition of Couz's Corner. Come on in, make yourself comfortable, belly yourself up to the bar. Let me pour you out another shot of top shelf college football content on tap today at Couz's Corner. I'm talking about a tweet put out by Mr. Bill Farley. This tweet was put out. I'm recording this on Saturday night. He put it out earlier in the day. And he actually thinks for a way for the Big 12 to make room for Florida State and Clemson without bringing private equity into the conference is by basically kicking out their bottom four members. And I was like, man, this is interesting. And I'm reading along. And then boom, all of a sudden he has West Virginia as one of those four members. And I went through the roof. Now, I'm going to give you my reasons why I think that take is dumb. But because I'm a West Virginia fan, I bleed gold and blue. I wanted to bring somebody on the show to get an outsider's perspective as well. And I'll bring them on in the second half of the show. But right now, I'm going to give you my take on it. First, let's go ahead and share Bill Farley's tweet so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Right here is Bill Farley's tweet. He says, how the Big 12 adds Florida State and Clemson without using private equity in 5 easy steps. 1, transfer Big 12 assets to the new All-State 12, supermajority vote required, 12 of 16 members. Don't invite back or purge 4 weakest members. 3, add FSU and Clemson. 4, keep or / negotiate same media contract with 2 less schools. And then 5, give FSU and Clemson double shares of media contract. I'm like, that's an outside-the-box idea. He says, call the roll on August 2nd, 2024. And the 4 schools he has X's beside are UCF, Cincinnati, Houston. And I'm thinking, okay, the 4 former G5s, I kind of get it. Kind of makes sense. I'm not saying I agree with it, but at least it makes sense. Then at the bottom, my team, West Virginia, he also has an X beside. What in the world, Bill Farley? What are you thinking? There is no way in the world West Virginia is one of the 4 weakest teams in the conference. No way. And I have data to support that, not just because I'm a fan of the team. There's actually data to support it. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is where Bill Farley might be getting his reasoning. And there's two areas really that West Virginia is weak in compared to other teams in the Big 12. The first area is academics. We all know West Virginia is not a highly rated academic school when you compare to a lot of other schools in the Power 4 and even in the Big 12, they're at the bottom. Them and Texas Tech are neck and neck at the bottom in academic rankings because the mission of this university is to educate as many people as possible, especially those in the state of West Virginia. Therefore, they have less strict standards as far as getting in and graduation and those types of things. So, yes, it's an easier school to get in because they want to educate people. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the mission of the school. Another area they're weak in is the financial piece. And I think Bill is a financial guy. That's where his background is. So I think this might be where he's thinking here. West Virginia is 12th in the conference in overall athletic budget. And of all the public institutions in the Big 12 in 2023, they were 8th or dead last in revenue for football. Now they're 7th overall in revenue among the public schools in the new Big 12, but they were 8th last year. And I think that might be where Bill's getting this. They don't make as much money as a lot of other schools in the league. Now, they have brought Ren Baker in to do that for them. That's Ren Baker's specialty, is earning revenue, is fundraising, getting more money for the school where he's the AD or assistant AD or whatever roles he served. That's his expertise. He's great at it. That's why he's there, or at least one of the reasons he's there. And he's getting West Virginia in a better position. Now, but that's only two areas really that West Virginia's not in the top half, at least in the top half of the Big 12 in. Now, I don't have any, I did go through and research this, and I'm going to list all of my sources in the description box. So you guys can go look this stuff up for yourself. First, let's talk about attendance to games. West Virginia is 33rd nationally in average attendance, or was 33rd nationally in average attendance between 2018 and 2022. That includes the COVID year, so take that into account. That is good for 5th in the new Big 12. And then if you look at attendance in 2023, they were 7th in the new Big 12 in attendance. Okay? Not great, but it's top half out of 16 teams. It's not bottom 4. Let's go to social media because we know that matters today. That's actually one of the things that may be looked at in realignment is how many followers does a school have on social media? Well, West Virginia just happens to be number 1 in the Big 12 in that regard, 19th in the nation. And that goes back to 2021, article by Run It Back with Zach over on Medium. He does a lot of articles like this based on college football data and analytics. But he had West Virginia 19th in the country and 1st in the new Big 12 in total number of social media followers. That means their fans are active, they're passionate, and that's great marketing for a university. Now, let's look at the size of the fan base. Now, the closest, most recent thing I could find was from 2011. Again, got to credit Run It Back with Zach for this as well. He's the one that led me to this. But they were 29th in the nation in size of their fan base, according to the New York Times in 2011. That would put them 2nd in the Big 12 behind only Oklahoma State. So, again, 2nd in fan base size, 1st in social media following, anywhere from 5th to 7th in attendance, depending on the time frame. All right. Now let's go to one thing everybody likes to talk about and brag about when it comes to value, and that's TV viewership. Where's West Virginia TV viewership? Well, they were 35th in TV viewership in the country between 2015 and 2019, which put them 4th would have put them 4th in the new Big 12. In 2023, they dropped a little bit down to they would have been 6th in the new Big 12. But you got to take into account Colorado got a huge boost from the Coach Prime effect with Dion being there. They were averaging 6 million views a week in 2023. So if you took that out of the equation, West Virginia would likely be 5th in the Big 12. But they were 6th in real numbers. Again, top half of the conference, not bottom 4. Let's look at success on the field. West Virginia is 15th nationally all time in total wins for a program. 15th. Out of all the programs in college football, they're 15th. They're also, I know this is focusing on football here, but they're also top 25 in wins in basketball. They're one of only 2 programs in the country who can say they're top 25 in both wins in both basketball and football, Texas being the other one. They've won, they're 3-0. They were 3-0 in BCS bowl games. They are a good historic program on the field. When you look at their national program rank on Winsipedia.com, they're number 37 in the country, which is good for number 5 in the new Big 12. Top half of the league. Now, I looked at 2 different sources that did brand valuations for college football. One was Run It Back with Zach. His latest one, he did in, I think it was early 2022. He had West Virginia at 29th overall in the country in brand valuation. Number 1 would have been good for number 1 in the new Big 12. So Run It Back with Zach has West Virginia as the top brand in the Big 12 conference. Then Navigate, who is the go-to company in the industry for brand valuations, the Brand Valuation Index. Their last one I could find was in 2021. You're going to be floored when you find out where they had West Virginia. Higher than I even expected. 9th in the country, folks. 9th in the entire country. And it's based on fan percentage of state population, size of the fan base, and revenue per fan. So West Virginia has a lot of fans. Most of the citizens in the state are fans, and those fans support their team. So take all that into account. It may put West Virginia number 9 in the country, and that was based on Navigate's latest issue of their brand valuation index in 2021. And I'm not even including how well they do in merch sales. They're consistently one of the top in the country in merch sales, top 20, 25 in the country year in, year out in merch sales. Because again, their fans support their team. You see the flying WV all over the country, and I think the guest I'm bringing on next will confirm that. So hang around as I bring on the WildUte from the College Football Mafia show, and I'm going to get his take on Mr. Farley's tweet. So WildUte is someone who has talked to Mr. Farley, who's had Mr. Farley on his show. He might be able to give us an idea of where Mr. Farley's brain was at when he put out this tweet. So without further ado, let's bring on WildUte. You've heard my spiel. You've heard my rant as to why I think Bill Farley is full of crap on his tweet about West Virginia should be kicked out of the Big 12, okay? But I have a tendency to look through things with gold and blue glasses on, and I acknowledge that. So I wanted to bring in somebody that's not affiliated with West Virginia, but does have his eye on the Big 12. He's a fan of a team in the Big 12. WildUte from over at College Football Mafia Network. WildUte, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about some finance stuff, and we'll break down West Virginia and the rest of the Big 12 and see if really West Virginia is in the bottom 4 of the Big 12. Is that right, Couz?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right, man. Yeah, that's right. WildUte, you saw the tweet from earlier. We're recording this actually on Saturday night. You saw the tweet that Bill Farley put out earlier in the day saying, hey, basically in a nutshell, if you want to make room for Florida State and Clemson, you kick the bottom 4 teams out, bottom 4 brands out to bring more money in for them 2 schools. And there's your answer. And he had West Virginia as one of those 4 schools. And I about flipped the lid when I saw that. Obviously, me being a West Virginia fan, I'm going to defend my team. But I feel like there's data there to support my claim. But I want to hear from you, a Utah fan. Do you agree with Bill's sentiment that those 4 teams, but for the sake of this video, specifically West Virginia, in a scenario like that, should be one of the teams kicked out?
Man, getting 4 teams kicked out and to reset the league to make it more valuable for Florida State and Clemson, that's a pretty bizarre idea, too. And like Bill Farley usually does his homework. The guy does some deep digging. Like I've worked with him on outside projects before, and he usually is pretty good at this stuff, too. So like Bill's no slouch, but it's trying to understand the thinking about this. Like where did he get the idea that West Virginia is really, one of the 4 teams that you should theoretically kick out of the conference and everything? And got to dive into that too, because a lot of the figures that Couz and I have looked at and that you all know don't support that at all. No. So we got to take a look at each one of them and really make a determination here.
Right. Real quick, before we dive into the numbers, WildUte, that you have for us, let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
Absolutely. So I'm over at College Football Mafia. And we have shows running almost daily over there, and live shows on Tuesdays and Fridays. That's when you can find me and stuff. I'll do that with Nathan Bomber Brown and Moen, and we've got Sergeant Pickles and Becky Go Huskies and Rocket Rant. So we do that thing over there. So come check us out.
Yeah, they do great work over there. Do a lot about college football and conference realignment. Very great stuff. They've had some really cool guests. Matter of fact, I think you guys have had Bill Farley on your show, haven't you?
We have. Yeah, we've had him on a few times. Yeah.
So Bill Farley, they've had Bob Thompson on several times, just to name a few. So anyway, yes, go check out College Football Mafia on YouTube. And obviously you can find him on X at WildUte, or you can find the network at CFB Mafia. All right. So as you and I were talking before we started recording, we've come to an understanding that we think Bill, and neither you or I, neither one have talked to Bill about this.
Sure.
He probably won't talk to me now because I went after him immediately, but that's okay. Neither one of us have talked to him about it, but we seem to think that maybe he was strictly looking at West Virginia and their low revenues that they've produced the last few years, especially in football. It's no secret. It's for everybody to see on Sportico, on various sites. West Virginia does not set the world on fire when it comes to revenue, especially in football. I think Ren Baker being there is going to change that. He's not even had 2 full years on the job yet to do his thing. And that was one of the reasons he was brought in, was to improve West Virginia's financial situation in athletics. So I think they'll get better. But do you think that's where he got this idea that West Virginia should be one of the bottom 4 brands?
Man, bottom 4 brands. Oh my gosh, that's just so crazy. Intuitively, just thinking about it and stuff, West Virginia is one of the top brands in the Big 12. Like, before we even get into the data and everything. So it was bizarre to see that from Bill, trying to understand the thinking, like you're saying, Couz and everything. So when you're looking at brands and valuations for teams, obviously the money and like the financial statements, what's said on the financial statements makes a difference, because that's like your history. That's actually what's happened. And that's real stuff. And so if you look, and we can break this out, why don't we pull up Sportico right now and take a look at where the Big 12 was reporting football revenues and see where West Virginia stacks up, because this might give us some insights on where Bill was kind of going with this. Do you mind if I share screen here?
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right, let's do this thing. All right. Okay. So then we're looking at Sportico right here. And we're looking at the Big 12 conference in 2022, 2023. This is the last year that the Big 12 is reporting information. So West Virginia, as far as football revenues, football only revenues, this doesn't include basketball nor anything else. This is just football revenues. They ended up in 8th spot in the Big 12. Sportico does not consider private schools in its information. That's why you're not seeing the other schools like Baylor in here. So it's just the public schools right here. But this is information that's out there. And when you're actually trying to put a valuation on a school or an investment or anything else, you're looking at these type of figures. And if West Virginia is showing in the lower area and stuff in the football revenues, that's probably where he's coming from. As far as that low valuation, I would imagine.
Right. And that's fair. And that is one of the areas I mentioned in my segment of the show early on, when I was, started talking about this, was that is one area West Virginia's weak in. Their revenue, their overall revenue is not great. But especially in football, and one of the I don't know what the reason for that is. Their attendance is typically good, so I'm not sure. And they do good on merch sales. So the only thing that I can think about are 2 things really, and the biggest one is, to me, maybe they could improve their attendance a little more. That stadium will hold 60,000 people. Okay. Last year, I think they averaged around 52,000 people per game. Okay. They could get that number up a little bit, maybe reducing ticket prices. West Virginia is the second, according to a study that was done, West Virginia is the second most expensive game day experience in the country. Okay. It's one of the poorest states in the country, but it's one of the most expensive teams to go watch play. So to me, that's a little backwards. But you're a finance guy, economics 101. You maximize your price, right? What you set your selling price where you think people will buy it as high as you can get it. That's how you maximize revenue. And West Virginia must think they've done that, right? So maybe lowering ticket prices, if they only sell 2,000 or 3,000 more tickets at a lower price, they're not making more money, right?
Exactly.
Maybe there's the balance they found. I'm not sure. I can't wrap my head around why the revenue. I do know they don't spend as much on football either as most teams in the conference. And to me, that's concerning. Hopefully Rim Baker's going to fix that. Again, he's only been on the job a short time. His expertise is in fundraising. That's what he's done his entire career. Fundraising and hiring basketball coaches. He's pretty much been almost about at 1,000 on that, but nonetheless, he's really good at it. So I'm hoping he can get things in the right direction for the Mountaineers programs, all their programs really, but mainly football. But that's the only thing I can think of that would have West Virginia so low on the revenue front, is the fact that tickets are so expensive, and maybe they just can't. Maybe they need to sell a few more of them. And and they don't have a lot of suites in Milan Puskar Stadium. The high dollar suites. They're actually planning on changing that and installing more luxury boxes in order to increase revenue. They don't have a lot of luxury boxes. They have a lot less than most other teams in the conference. So that's another way they can. So there's just a lot of areas like that where West Virginia's behind their Big 12 counterparts. And I'm assuming those areas are where that revenue comes in, because I don't think it's merch sales, and I don't think it's necessarily ticket sales because of the price point they're setting them at.
Yeah, I think some ticket sales for football are getting included in that, but some media rights, like they're carving out
Mm-hmm.
a portion of the media rights the Big 12 has
Mm-hmm.
earned and throwing
Mm-hmm.
it to the football. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand that either. You have to take a deep dive into that, but
Yeah.
still, like, okay, even so, even if West Virginia has low football only revenue generation, like, let's just look at everything else that West Virginia has to offer any
Mm-hmm.
conference, not just the Big 12, because, like, that's the only thing that you could really criticize
Mm-hmm.
as far as evaluation and stuff and say, like, okay, if you look at anything else, if you look at viewership, if you look at brand awareness and everything, West Virginia is one of the tops in the Big 12 by far. It's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
Navigate. Like, let's take a look at
Yeah.
the Navigate figures. Do you have those figures by chance?
I don't have them in front of me, but I did look at
Yeah.
research it today, and they were 9th in the country. In the last thing I could find where Navigate did a brand valuation, they had West Virginia 9th in the country. And I was taken back by that because I'm thinking 9th in the country. I mean, when you take in consideration the Alabamas, the Texases, the Georgias, all them.
9th in the country. Navigate.
Yep.
The Navigate's no joke, right? This is like the big valuation entity, right? To do
Yep.
these type of like appraisals for teams.
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia was number 9 nationally. Like that's that, and now that'd be number 1 in the Big 12, right?
Yep.
With Texas, no, you gone. So I mean, like, there's some inconsistencies here with how to look at this. When we're talking brand, West Virginia is a premier brand, and if we look at the viewership data, we take a look at like, hey, what's going on like the eyeball side and everything, because so much of your valuation, so much of your brand and your value to a conference is driven by media rights value.
Mm-hmm.
And how many eyeballs you're getting on your football games, because football is 80% of a media contract. That's really the big driver and everything. And looking at the last 8 years of football here for West Virginia, they shake out in the Big 12 when you position them around the other Big 12 teams in the 3rd position. So 3 out of 16 Big 12 teams, West Virginia shaken out at. So just like a really strong metric and everything to prove the Mountaineers actually are a massive brand.
And right there it is on the screen for everybody to see. Number 3 right there behind Oklahoma State and TCU is West Virginia in TV viewership. So, again, what better way to look at a team's value than how many eyeballs they're bringing to a television screen? And this is over what period of time, WildUte?
This is from 2015 to 2023, and you throw out the COVID year because a lot of the packed schools weren't playing as much that year. So, really, this is since 2015. So West Virginia is pretty much averaging. Well, you can look at the 8-year trend right here. They're averaging about 1 million and 1.1 million to 1.2 million viewers per game, right?
Right.
And stacking that again, it's 3rd place in the Big 12 and stuff. So a huge chunk above average share of viewerships coming from West Virginia in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They're really driving viewership and everything. And some of the other candidates that you mentioned, stuff that Bill had mentioned, like UCF and Cincinnati and Houston, I mean, they're obviously lower on that scale too. If you look down this list and stuff, Houston, Cincy, UCF 12, 13, 14 on the viewership list, and 15 to 16, KU and Arizona. Ouch.
Yeah, really.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously KU's not getting kicked out because of their basketball brand, right? They're too valuable in that regard. And Arizona's not getting kicked out. They just, again, basketball plays an important piece of this too. Obviously not as important as football, but they're not kicking out the Arizona Wildcats and their basketball brand, right? So to me, I sort of understood Bill's reasoning with the 3 schools, to be fair. And I'm not throwing shade at those 3 schools, but they're just coming up from the group of 5. They haven't had a chance to get on that same level as the other P5 brands yet, right?
Right.
They can get there. I think especially UCF has a really high upside, especially with the market they're in, the number of enrollees they have in their university. As young as that school is, hasn't even been around that long. Their upside is tremendous, in my opinion. So I don't even think kicking them out makes a lot of sense. The other 2 we could debate, but at the end of the day, having West Virginia, who's 15th all time in wins in history, on that list, and he wants to kick them out of the league, just doesn't make any sense. By the way, while you were talking, I found that Navigate graphic just so people don't think I'm full of it. I'm gonna put it up on the screen real quick. Brand value index: number 1, Nebraska; number 2, Alabama; number 3, LSU; number 4, Ohio State; 5 Oklahoma, 6 Michigan, 7 Oregon, 8 Iowa, 9 West Virginia, who actually fell 2 spots, basically swapped places with Oregon because of Oregon's brand is growing, which makes sense. And 10 is Texas. Now, this is from 2021, and the average is 100. West Virginia is sitting at 137 in their brand value index. And again, they look at revenue per fan, size of the fan base, and fan percent of state population. So right there is how high Navigate is and their consultants. And Navigate is like the go-to, so to speak, for these types of things in the industry. Are they not?
Yeah, they are 100%.
So I'm assuming that Brett Yormark and others have seen this right here, you would think. And I've probably even had conversations with Navigate about some of these teams on these lists. So
I would
anyway.
bet Brett Yormark gets a daily report from Navigate with all like their schools, and the A4, the autonomous 4, to see really what schools valued where and what his schools are valued at. It's really important to know.
Mm-hmm.
And everything on like who might come poaching one day or whatnot. But it just provides more evidence that West Virginia is a massive brand. I'll tell you this perspective. This is just like my own personal story. Like looking at West Virginia before the Utes entered the Big 12, West Virginia was one of the premier brands for sure. Like perception wise out here, I know Mountaineer fans out here in Salt Lake City. They rep all their Mountaineer gear. They're nuts about West Virginia. So West Virginia has just this epically strong fan base, as we know, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the perceptions that like West Virginia is one of the elites and fan base wise and everything. So going back to the valuations, these things just aren't consistent, right? Like, I mean, the financial part of this, and then like the brand and like the viewership part of it's like really hard to understand really why these things are connected together.
Right. And when you look at the data we've talked about here, one thing to keep in mind, these numbers would be even better. West Virginia's before last year, before the 2023 season, West Virginia was in one of the worst 4-year stretches in football in program history. Okay. The worst one since the late 1970s. So obviously that's going to impact your fan attendance. It's going to impact your TV viewership. It's going to impact everything. So if they start winning again, like they were back in the early 2000s, or even like they did a couple years in the Big 12 early on, that brand value is just going to get even better, So I just don't, and I'm sure Bill Farley, being the college football guy that he is, seems to follow the sport. He knows about West Virginia's history, I would assume. So, but anyway, I appreciate you coming on here, giving your perspective from someone who doesn't bleed gold and blue like I do. I wanted my listeners to hear it from somebody besides me. Before we get out of here, one more time, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, I'll say this last point, though. West Virginia, in my mind, is clearly a top 5 brand in the Big 12. When you're looking at all the data and everything, I know that, like, hey, the revenue's not might be the biggest and everything, but like the viewership, the brand, and everything else, I think that you get in a top 5 spot in the Big 12. And that's saying something, and that's far, far away than getting placed in like the 12th spot or the 13th spot in the Big 12 and everything. So that's probably a reality, like a top 5 type brand and everything. I think most people would agree with that. So
I think that's fair.
Really, that's the view. Yeah.
I think it's fair. Absolutely. Matter of fact, I did my brand tier list a few weeks ago. I had them, Utah, I think BYU, and one or two others, Oklahoma State, as the S tier teams in the conference. I was basing it strictly on my opinion. I didn't have any data or anything to back up my answers. I'm just going by what I know about each team. So I think Utah, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, BYU, and I don't know.
Kansas.
Maybe
Kansas in there probably.
Kansas, yeah, Kansas was the other one. I had Kansas there because of their basketball. You're right. But I had those as the 5 premier brands in the league. Would you say that's a pretty fair
list? You're right there. Like BYU is going to be up there too, as far as like brand value and stuff. Like they're approaching that. BYU was independent so long. You think that now being in the Big 12, that brand will grow and grow, and it's already got a really good base and everything. So you're teetering there with the Cougars. But yeah, I would agree with that. Right now, based on performance and everything else, perceptions, those are your teams.
Yep. All right. Once again, everybody go find WildUte at College Football Mafia on YouTube. He does a lot of great work over there with his colleagues. He's on X at WildUte, just like it sounds. And you can also find the College Football Mafia Network on X at CFB Mafia. Again, it's at CFB Mafia. You can also find him at B12 Mafia. And then again, you can find him at WildUte. And you can find me at Couz 206. Come check me out if you want to interact with us over there. Thanks again for coming on the show, man. It's been fun.
Absolutely. And go Utes and go Mountaineers.
That's right.
Big brands, baby. Big brands.
That's right. S tier brands, baby. S tier brands.
S tier, right.
Q Country Roads.